At 56 years old, Jennifer Lynn Fulford was more than just a caretaker. She was a devoted wife, a loving mother, a proud grandmother, and a trusted employee of a well-known family in the area. Known for having a warm heart and dependability, she had worked for the family of Reed Berman, a prominent local businessman, for over 7 years. To those around her, Jennifer was the epitome of kindness and grace, often described as selfless and deeply nurturing. Her employer spoke highly of her character and work ethic, noting that she treated their children like they were her own, and was one of the most dependable people they had ever known. She was the kind of person whose word was bond, who never forgot to check in with someone. If she said she was going to do something, it got done. Which is why when she forgot to pick up the children she nannied after school one day, everyone knew something terrible must have happened. On the morning of September 27, 2017, Jennifer went about her day like any other. She had a scheduled dental appointment in Winter Park and left the office shortly before noon. Surveillance footage captured her movements, walking to her car and driving away. Those in the dentist office that day would be the last people to see Jennifer alive. On the way back to Berman's home, she called an art dealer in the area that Reed had wanted to swing by to work on the art he collected. They agreed that after the dentist appointment, Jennifer would call the dealer to come over. That way she wasn't waiting around the home while no one was there. The call was sent to voicemail, so she left a message. She sounded like she was in good spirits, and there was no sense of urgency or fear in her voice. She made it back to the Berman home without issue, according to the security logs. However, shortly after arriving and entering the home, a package was delivered. The package was from the Bacon of the Month Club, and it would seem that Jennifer opened the door to the home to bring it in. But someone else entered with Jennifer, and the package was left on the doorstep. The last time Jennifer's voice was heard was on another call she made to the art dealer shortly thereafter. This time, she sounded panicked and scared, and she relayed that the dealer should not come over because she had just received a call that something was wrong at the school, and she needed to go and pick up the child she nannied for. Her voice had a frantic edge to it, which seemed a bit extreme for having to pick up a child from school, but the art aficionado agreed to come over another time, and went about their day as usual. But Jennifer had not been called to the school. She had not been informed of some accident that required her attention, and she would never be heard from again. A few short hours after that phone call, another call would be made, this time from the school to Reed Berman. He was made aware that, for the first time since hiring Jennifer, his son hadn't been picked up from school. He was immediately alarmed, but thought that maybe she had fallen asleep, or that her dentist appointment had simply run long. He tried to comfort himself by thinking of scenarios where her absence could be explained. But this was Jennifer he was talking about. She would always call. He would pick his son up from school and take him home, believing that maybe Jennifer was there. However, from the moment he saw his home, he knew something was wrong. The package was still on the front porch, sitting in the hot sun, and her car was not in the driveway. Again, he tried to calm himself. Maybe she hadn't come home since the package was delivered. Maybe she was still at the dentist, getting emergency surgery, and didn't have time to call him before she was put under. Maybe there was a car accident and her phone was broken. But once inside, he knew something terrible had happened. Jennifer's purse with her photo ID and phone was found tucked away inside the bathroom. Without letting another moment pass him by, Berman called the police. Time was of the essence, and he did everything he could to make sure Jennifer would be found. Welcome back to another episode of Dreading, or if this is your first time here, welcome. Today we are going to be covering the case of Jennifer Fulford and what it looks like when a person abuses the court system in order to quell their need for power and control. This case had been recommended to us over a year ago at time of recording, and it's clear to see why. When we have covered someone testifying in their own defense, they are usually attempting to get away with murder. They're trying to mass manipulate the jury and the public into believing that they are being railroaded, or the case against them is fraudulent in some way. It's usually a terrible idea, made by someone exhibiting narcissistic personality traits, who is blatantly ignoring their lawyer's advice. But that is not the case here. The testimony we're going to cover is chilling, because it involves someone using his time on the stand to confess to murder in explicit detail, just to feel like he had some power over the justice system. He wanted to force the state to listen to him, even if he had nothing to say. Before we begin, if there's a video you would like to see on the channel, or a case you would like to bring more attention to, let me know by leaving it in the comments down below, or emailing me at dreading.official@gmail.com. We're consistently going through your emails and comments, adding your suggestions to our list. Though we are currently working through thousands of suggestions and it might take us a while to get to yours, we promise we will do our best. So, with all of that said, let us begin. When law enforcement arrived at the Berman residence, they found Jennifer's purse tucked away in the bathroom, suggesting she had returned to the home after her visit to the dentist, but her phone, wallet, and Hyundai SUV were gone. However, despite her vanishing into thin air, someone had used her ATM card at a local bank, withdrawing $300 from her account. A security camera on the machine revealed that it hadn't been Jennifer, but was a man wearing glasses with a ponytail. He had a ponytail, the glasses didn't have a ponytail, attached to the front of them. The man was clearly trying to obscure his identity, taking great pains to make sure that his face was covered from the nose down by a towel. His eyes were covered with the glasses, and his hair was mostly covered by a hat, although the ponytail was of course visible. The man on the tape seemed to have some degree of criminal knowledge, knowing how to hide his identity and how to strike without gaining undue interest. This told police that Jennifer's life was very much in danger, and whoever was behind this abduction likely had a significant criminal history. But there was one thing that immediately gained the police's interest, and that was the watch the man was wearing. The band was unique and stood out against the rest of the man's ensemble, and they quickly deduced that the watch could lead them to the potential kidnapper. While some detectives focused on trying to find the man on the security footage, others worked with Robert Fulford, Jennifer's husband, to try and find her car. Because it was moved from the scene, the police were under the impression that the kidnapper had either taken the car himself or forced her to drive him around in it. If they were able to find the car, chances were high that either Jennifer or the kidnapper were nearby. Luckily, Jennifer's car was equipped with the OnStar service, and within a day, they were able to locate her car in a Publix parking lot. But unfortunately, their assumption that she was nearby was incorrect. At the same time, the man on the security footage would make another appearance, going to a different machine and pulling out more money. This time, he didn't cover his face, allowing his image to be captured by the security camera. It was a small but meaningful break in the case. They either had the man behind the kidnapping or someone who had unknowingly stumbled upon evidence. Either way, as the investigators began to talk about how to release the images to the public, Jennifer would be found, but not in the way anyone was hoping for. 3 days after Jennifer vanished from the Berman home, her body was found in a wooded area near Apopka Vineland Road. Her head had been wrapped completely in duct tape, starting at her neck and ending past her ears. She had been stabbed multiple times in the chest and back, with 2 of the stabs puncturing her heart. Her hands had been bound behind her back with a zip tie, and her legs had been bound together with duct tape. The medical examiner was unable to determine conclusively what killed Jennifer, and instead found that she died from both stabbing injuries and asphyxiation. A knife was found near where her body was left, seemingly thrown away by the killer directly after the murder. The discovery of Jennifer's body was shocking, especially to friends and family. She had always been a kind, good-natured person, entirely undeserving of the rage present in her murder. It was therefore determined that whoever killed her was using her as a stand-in for the real subject of their anger, and she had been a proxy. The case quickly shifted gears from a kidnapping into a homicide investigation. The man in the video was their only lead, and they were determined to find the person who had so callously taken Jennifer away from those who adored her. A picture of the man from the security footage was publicized, and probation officers in the area were asked to look it over and determine if they knew who the man was. They immediately received a response from Julio Dominguez. He told them that the man on the tape was Scott Nelson, a man with a significant criminal history, who had been convicted of kidnapping his own father and forcing him to withdraw thousands from the bank, and robbing a bank with a fake bomb. His crimes were similar but not identical to what had been done to Jennifer, and it seemed that his time in prison had taught him one thing: if he didn't want to be caught, he would have to kill. 5 days after Jennifer's abduction, Scott Nelson would be arrested and brought into police custody. Scott was brought into the interrogation room at 6:49 p.m., and for the last 3 hours and 45 minutes, he's been meant to sit there and stew, completely alone. He spent the majority of the time sitting with his head on the table, trying to rest, and was let out once when he told the officers he needed to pee. Nelson was no stranger to law enforcement, and he's also not a criminal mastermind. The interrogators likely wanted to leave him alone after he was brought in order to rattle him and make him a bit more nervous before they spoke to him. They also likely felt that he deserved to be left hanging, wondering when they were going to speak to him, and made to feel like he wasn't being treated fairly. So, let's see how this interview goes. The footage here was uploaded by the channel 911 TV, and a link to the original upload will be left in the description box down below. Be aware, it is 5 hours long, and it includes the first 4 hours of Scott waiting, but ends with him being prepared for prison, where he has to strip and be photographed naked.
Hey, there's a detective I'll take here.
I'm Sergeant Sue Atkins. Here.
Hey, Doc, Dorley.
All right, thanks.
You got water? You okay? I could use something to eat. I haven't eaten something to eat. Hungry?
Scott asks for food the second the interviewers ask him if there is anything he would like before they begin the interview. In nearly all police interviews we have covered, no one has ever made a request for food, simply because the person is on edge. When people are nervous or stressed, their appetite tends to vanish. Your mind tells your body you're in danger, and food will usually seem unappealing. But not for Scott. Scott knows the drill. He's not nervous like other people we have covered, as he is a career criminal who has no real empathy towards other people. He isn't stressed, nervous, or scared about what's going to happen to him, because he knows the worst case scenario is him going back to prison, and he's okay with that. So there's nothing these officers can do to him that will affect him in any way, so he has no problem making direct requests. It should also be noted that if someone has been interviewed by police previously, they tend to be aware that this will be one of the only times they can make a request of this nature, so they often pounce on it. It also was somewhat clear that the waiting had very little effect on Nelson. He isn't nervous or upset with his current situation. In fact, he appears calmer than the interrogators, which will likely pose a problem later on.
Starving. I mean, I'm dizzy. I'm so hungry.
Okay. We'll get you some.
Okay.
There's let's see if I could grab you something.
Sorry. Please sorry about. Sorry for being hungry. Thanks. No, man, that's not a problem.
The male interrogator immediately tries to endear himself to Scott, saying he has no reason to be sorry, and speaks with a comically happy tone. He's trying to make himself seem like a trusted friend, someone who Scott can open up to without judgment, but is probably overdoing it a bit.
We'll wait and see what she can find, so sure. No problem. You doing okay? Yeah. Hungry, huh? Yeah, starving. What do you like to eat? Oh, God, anything. Anything? I'm not too fussy. No? Yeah. What's your favorite kind of food? Pizza, probably. Gotta go. And after my own heart there, so. Right. Yeah. I gotta love the pizza. Well, Nelson's not Italian, though, is it? No, but it should have been. Yeah. It should have been. Yeah, I could eat pizza pretty much every day. Yeah, I know. I do, too. But I would be a little bit fatter if I did that, so I gotta watch. I know, it does. It'll blow you up. Oh, you know, that's what happens when you get old. It sucks getting old, doesn't it? It does. It takes forever to get rid of the weight. Oh, tell me. I lost 70 pounds. Really? Yeah. It took me a while to do it. Yeah. It's good. It's not easy.
You're making me hungry, so.
I'm sorry. So yeah, so we'll try to work on getting you something to eat. Yeah, she has. And then we'll go over the preliminary stuff if you're okay with that. All right, yeah. We'll go.
Okay. So we got some
that's fine.
energy in here, and then we got
that's good.
And then
Good, I'm good. Is it pizza flavor?
No, sorry.
Oh. No, I'm good. What you guys? All right, Scott. So, yep. All right. You know, we'd like to talk about, and I'm sure you probably have a million questions too. So, yeah. You know, if you're okay, a couple things we have to do. So let's go through that first, and then I want to get some background information on you, if that's okay, and then we'll go from there. Okay? All right. Okay.
As always, we have to point out that if you are ever in a police interrogation room, you should always ask to speak to a lawyer. The media, both through television shows and reporting around true crime, has demonized the act of seeking legal counsel, with the immediate implication being that only guilty people do that. But that is of course not true. The police only want you to believe it's true, so you don't act in your best interest. A police interview room is a scary place to be, and even if you are a completely innocent person, you could say or do something that leads them to looking into you as a suspect, which they can then publicize. There are plenty of examples of people's lives that have been ruined in this way, and it's up to you and only you to protect yourself. A lawyer's only job is to act in your best interest, which is why a good one is so expensive. Hopefully, you're never put in this position, but if you are, ask to speak to an attorney, and do not waver on that.
Let me, first thing I have to do is let me go over these with you. I brought you here in handcuffs and everything, okay? Right. So we have to go over these with you, okay? Sure. I just want to make sure you understand them. If you have any questions about anything, make sure you stop and ask me, okay? Don't not understand these. These are important, all right? Okay. So, you know, you have the right to remain silent. Do you understand that? Mm-hmm. Is that yes? Yes. Okay. I just want to make sure I don't want to misunderstand you. I know you're eating, but we didn't guess our. I just don't want to misunderstand you, that's all. Anything you say may be used against you in court. Do you understand? Yes. Okay. You have the right to talk to a lawyer before and during questioning. Do you understand? Yes. Yes. Okay. If you cannot afford a lawyer, want one won't be provided for you before questioning without charge. Do you understand? Yes. Has anyone threatened you or promised you anything to get you to talk to me? Has anybody told you
it would give you anything if you talked to me?
No.
Okay. All right. Okay. The only other thing I want you to do is you just raise your right hand for me, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Okay. So, I'd like to get some background on you. Pizza's your favorite food. I got that so far, but let me get a little bit more if you're okay with that. Okay. All right. So Scott, it's Nelson, right? Nelson.
Yes.
Okay. How old are you? Can I call you Scott or just Nelson? What do you?
Scott's fine.
Scott's. Okay. How old are you, Scott?
53.
What's your date of birth?
2/28/64.
Where were you born?
We're at Brockton,
Brockton? Where's that? Mass?
Massachusetts.
Oh, from up north.
Yep.
Got out of the cold, huh?
Yes.
You were born in Brockton, Mass. Did you grow up there?
Yes.
Okay. When did you come? Well, did you go to high school up there?
Yes, I did.
Any college?
No.
No. Okay. All right. Military?
No military.
Military. Married?
No.
Okay. Or close?
No.
No.
Not really.
No divorce or anything, huh?
No.
Hey, you're a lucky one. Children?
No children.
Siblings? Brothers? Sisters?
Yeah, I have a couple brothers.
Couple
Older.
brothers? Okay, older. So you're the youngest, huh?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask you
Yeah,
something?
ask away. Go ahead.
I'm under arrest.
Yes. and
What
we'll get
are
into
my
that.
charges?
Okay. Right now we got some issues with some credit card use. Okay. So I'd like to go into that. All right. And,
Okay.
And you know, there's always two sides to every story. You understand that, and that's why we're talking to you because obviously there's two sides to every story. I'd like to hear what you have to say.
What
about
credit card? Because I don't own a credit card.
it. Okay. All right. Well, we'll get into that in a little bit.
Okay.
Bear with me. Let me get through some of this stuff, and then we'll go
Okay.
right into that. Okay?
Sure.
All right.
The interviewer responds to this question beautifully because he knows that if he were to tell Scott that they arrested him in connection to a kidnapping and murder, he would likely clam up. By simply saying he was only brought in because of some dodgy credit card charges, he is more likely to get information out of the career criminal. However, it's also painfully obvious that he's lying. He comes across as nervous when answering the question, and the confidence that he seemed to have earlier has vanished. Hopefully, Nelson didn't pick up on that.
Okay. So, well, let's talk about that. So you don't own a credit card?
No.
You have a debit card, ATM card?
I'm trying to think. I think I do.
Okay. What do you think you do? What does that mean?
Well, I mean, what? I don't have enough information. I mean, I
As I said, well, let's walk through it.
Sure, okay.
All right. So, do you have any idea why you think you may be here at all?
no.
No. Okay. Okay. Well, let's go back a little bit. Sergeant Sue Pass from Winter Park PD. I'm from Orlando Police Department. Okay, you're here in Jacksonville. Were you were in Orlando last week?
Mhm.
Okay. How long had you been in Orlando for?
About 4 months.
4 months. Okay. Where did you come from? Where were you before you got to Orlando?
Prison.
Okay, so you got out of prison, you came right to Orlando?
Yes.
Were you in prison in Florida, or were you in prison somewhere else?
Somewhere else. Federal.
Okay, all right. No,
Sure.
Nothing. That's something. What made you come to Orlando?
It's just where they assigned me to.
Oh, for probation?
Yeah,
Okay. So you're doing some federal probation time?
that's correct.
Okay, all right. And so you were assigned to Orlando, so you got to Orlando.
Which is now in violation. But,
Because you're in Jacksonville?
right.
Okay.
Well, been arrested. That does it probably more.
Okay. Where were you staying in Orlando?
Of the mission,
Which one?
West Central.
The rescue mission over there? Right by the old police station?
Yes,
They're ripping that thing down. Have you seen it?
it's
It's
tough.
crazy, right? Yeah. All right, so you're at the rescue mission. How did you like the rescue mission? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, no one really wants to be there.
No.
But,
Were they pretty strict?
yeah, very, very much so.
Now, were you working while you were in Orlando?
Yeah, I was working for a painting business.
Do you know the name of it?
Yeah, Agora.
Agora?
Okay. It's in Winter Park.
Agorra? Agora?
Actually, it's on AYOPA.
Oh, okay.
I know, it's one of those Greek letter things. No one gets it.
All right. And it's just Agora painting?
Mhm.
And it's in Winter Park?
Forsyth Road.
How'd you wind up with that job?
Oh, no, I just applied.
Oh, good, okay. Like an internet applied or just in person, or how did you apply?
In person.
In person, okay. And they hired you. What'd they have you doing?
Painting apartments.
Apartments? Like new apartments or old apartments, like refurbished or what?
Like the villages and
Okay.
some, pretty nice places.
Were you on like a crew or was it just you going out by yourself?
No, me and a couple guys.
You and a couple guys. Did you do anything else besides apartments? Have you ever done houses or anything like that, or just apartments? Okay.
Just pretty much apartments.
Okay. Are you still employed with them?
No.
When did that stop?
A couple of weeks ago.
A couple weeks ago. What
Yes.
happened?
I'm just curious to know where this is all headed.
Well, that's what we're getting to. I'm trying to understand where you were in Orlando and everything else. And what I'd like to know is, we're going to see where you were, and it'll help me understand what's going on too. So it'll come out as we talk. So bear with me here.
Okay.
Scott losing his job so close to the murder is an important piece of information because it would mean that for the last few weeks, he's been significantly more stressed. The fact that he was fired can only serve as a stressor that led him to the extreme rage that he exhibited when he killed Jennifer. Unfortunately, the interviewer's apparent nervousness is back on display here, and it's allowed Scott to feel more comfortable questioning things here. He has lost command of the interview.
How are you getting paid by the painting company?
Will I have an attorney coming in here?
That's totally up to you. You tell me. I mean,
Oh yeah, no problem.
what would you like?
I think since I've been arrested, I think I'd like an attorney present to speak.
Okay. All right. Well, then we have to stop. And, go ahead.
If you place me under arrest, then I'm going to get a lawyer anyway.
You are. And listen, it's totally up to you.
Right.
I know you asked what this is about.
Right.
It's totally up to you.
Sir.
Whatever you like. We have.
We're not here to judge you. That's
Oh, no,
your
I know.
decision. So,
No, I know.
like
Thank you,
detective,
Detective.
like the detective told you, there's always two sides to every story. So every person that's arrested, we like to give them their opportunity to just speak their mind, let us know, what their side of the story is. Maybe,
Right.
They had no involvement. So that's usually your only opportunity.
Right.
But when you say you want a lawyer, I just want to clarify: do you want a lawyer or not?
I would like a lawyer.
Okay. So then, unfortunately, we can't give you that opportunity.
Okay.
All right.
Good luck.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Take care, sir.
Yes.
Sorry.
Almost right back. You're gonna put me in jail anyway.
So Scott has asked for an attorney, meaning that this conversation is over. He pretty much had command over the interview the entire time. It didn't matter that they made him wait almost 4 hours, that they didn't tell him what he was actually arrested for, and that the interviewer tried to find some common ground with him. The moment that Scott put together that he was being talked to in connection with Jennifer's murder, he asked to speak to a lawyer. After Scott's arrest, he would plead not guilty to all charges. However, even though that was his plea, he never denied that he was behind the murder. In fact, he would argue that he had killed Jennifer, but had been pushed to commit the crime because of his probation officer, whom he blamed for his circumstances. His defense was so weak that his own lawyer struggled to say anything of value in his opening statements. instead spending nearly 5 minutes saying that every defendant deserves the right to a fair trial. Scott's own lawyer couldn't think of any argument to support his client, something we have never witnessed, so he stood there and gave a speech like a kid trying to hit a word goal on his essay. It should also be noted that Scott felt the entire trial was a performance of sorts. When the prosecution was going over their opening statement, which perfectly laid out everything that happened in Jennifer's last day and all the evidence against him, Scott turned towards her family in court and winked at them. When an expert witness was testifying, Nelson began loudly arguing with his legal team, leading to him being scolded by the judge. He clearly believed the process was a farce and just wanted to use his time in the spotlight to both hurt the victim's family and make a spectacle of himself. But because Scott's defense relied solely on getting the members of the jury to believe that he had been pushed to murder Jennifer because of his own probation officer, he would take the stand in his own defense. The following is the footage as made public by Law and Crime here on YouTube. A link will be left in the description box down below to the original upload sans commentary.
This time, Your Honor, we would call Scott Nelson.
Thank you.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. You may be seated. Please state and spell your first and last name for Madam Court Report.
Scott Edward Nelson, SCOTTEDWARD
Thank you. Mr. Lahr?
How old are you, sir?
I'm 55,
And date of birth?
February 28, 1964.
Can you tell me who Julio Dominguez is?
Julio Dominguez is employed by the U.S. Department of Justice, United States Probation Office in Orlando, Florida.
As previously mentioned, Scott's entire defense relies on convincing the men and women of the jury that Julio Dominguez's actions were so abhorrent that it caused him to kill Jennifer, that Julio had acted outside of the parameters of a probation officer and then had tried to destroy his life, and so that is the reason Jennifer was murdered, which is a ridiculous defense. Scott views himself as a victim in this circumstance, as the person who has suffered the most in this situation, and the person who has been made to suffer throughout his life. Nothing he did has ever been his own fault, including when he pulled a gun on his father and robbed him, or when he robbed that bank. In his mind, all of his actions were not only justified, but reasonable, and something that the other party was responsible for. Though Scott knows that his defense will probably not work, and that he will be going back to prison, his goal here is not to avoid that fate. He just wants to smear Julio's name in order to embarrass and torment him. This is an act of revenge. The way he speaks about Julio is intensely charged, and you get a sense that he still holds a significant amount of rage towards the man.
And how is he related to this case?
Well, sir, he was my probation officer. I was on supervised release.
Okay, and what is the importance of his involvement in this case?
Well, sir, I'll be very frank with you. Jennifer Lynn Fulford would be alive today had it not been for Julio Dominguez.
And your reason for that statement, sir?
I think the world should know that. I mean, it's justice. The truth should be known, sir.
Scott has a frankly snarky way of speaking. The way he presents his information, which so far has been idiotic nothings, is meant to make the person he's in conversation with, or the listener, feel small. He relays his thoughts as if what he is saying is the most obvious thing in the world, even though he's currently asking the jury to believe a probation officer who never met Jennifer Fulford caused him to kill her. The thing he is saying is outright idiotic, but through his delivery, he is attempting to make you, the listener, feel like an idiot. This is a strange but sometimes effective tactic with people who lie often, as an air of confidence can get that person pretty far. Take what happened in the interrogation room earlier with the interviewer. When he was put on the spot by Scott, instead of responding confidently, he began stuttering nervously, presenting the information in a way that made it obvious he wasn't telling the full truth. If you were talking to someone and they responded that way after you asked them a basic question, you would immediately know that they were lying. But say they responded the way Scott is talking now, talking down to you, nodding and shaking their head like everything you say is the stupidest thing they've ever heard, and responded confidently. Even if they were telling you something that you knew wasn't true, you would likely question yourself a little. But let's continue.
Have you ever been convicted of a felony?
6 of them, sir.
Okay. And I don't believe I have any further questions.
So Scott didn't even explain how this was Julio's fault. He just said that it was, which is a terrible, terrible defense. Worse than when Nancy Brophy took the stand and claimed that she just didn't remember driving to Starbucks and then passed the scene of her husband's murder the morning she killed him, because she's a tiny bit forgetful sometimes. But with his defense out of the way, let's see how the prosecution responds.
Cross-examination.
Good morning, Mr. Nelson.
Good morning, Ms. Burdick.
Where are you from?
Originally,
Sure.
I was born in the state of Massachusetts and raised in the state of New Hampshire.
Right. And you moved to Orlando in March or May of 2017, correct?
That's correct.
And you came here and then you were under the supervision of this individual by the name of Julio Dominguez.
That's correct.
All right. So Mr. Dominguez was a federal probation officer,
That's correct.
okay? And Mr. Dominguez, according to your statement, is the individual responsible for Jennifer Fulford's death.
Yes.
Did Mr. Dominguez kill Jennifer Fulford?
No.
Who killed Jennifer Fulford?
I did.
All right. So you left unsaid why Mr. Dominguez is responsible for her death. Would you like to explain?
Yes.
Please do.
I was employed in Winter Park for a painting company by a alleged Christian family who took it in their interest because I was such a dedicated, hard worker, allowed me to live at their employment as well. Prior to that, I had been homeless after being released from federal custody, thrown to the street, homeless with no money. I mean, that's how they do business. My federal supervised release officer, Julio Dominguez, after suffering on the streets of Orlando for many months with no identification, thanks to the Federal Bureau of Prisons throwing out my IDs.
Let me interrupt you.
Yes, ma'am.
You said many months. We're talking about 3 or 4 months, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And I
What
was,
did Mr. Dominguez do to you?
he made it a point to create a situation with my employer / landlord, which is one of the same, and he got me thrown on the street after months of suffering on the streets of Orlando.
So what he did was notify your employer that you were on federal probation.
No, actually, Ms. Burdick, what he did was I satisfied the courts and the probation officers' criteria. I told them that I was in prison, and I named the felony, and they were happy with that, the family. That satisfied the court. He took it upon himself to, as he called it, a third-party perspective, and he went to the owner, and he used vulgar language and said, "What are you, blank, crazy for letting this man live here? And you're going to let him work here? Get him out of here." And that got me thrown on the street.
So that is not even close to what occurred, but that is Scott's honest perception of what happened, which is important to notate, because arguing this point with him is a pointless affair. Because this is how Scott genuinely perceived the event happening, it wouldn't matter if the two parties denied that that is what happened, which they did, or if there was direct video evidence of what had occurred. Scott would still believe he is right. Julio contacted Scott's employer to make sure that he had been informed of the crimes that Scott had committed, which he had not been. He had no idea that Scott had tried to rob a bank with a fake bomb, or that he had kidnapped his own father and forced him to withdraw thousands of dollars from his own bank accounts. When the man was made aware of that fact, he immediately felt unsafe keeping Scott as an employee and having him continue to live under his own roof with his family, which Nelson seems to believe is extremely unchristian of him, which is a strange way to condemn someone when you were on trial and just admitted to murdering someone. Nelson doesn't actually care about the man's faith, though. He's just trying to slight him in retaliation for wronging him. He's trying to hit the man where it hurts, regardless of how foolish it makes him look. Julio didn't have the power to tell his landlord/employer to kick Scott out. He didn't yell and scream at the man, intimidating him into compliance. He just informed him exactly about Scott's past crimes after he had failed to do so, and the man ultimately decided to kick him out of his home and fire him. Looking at the situation from an outsider's point of view, it makes perfect sense why his employer wouldn't want to hire someone who was known to rob people at gunpoint or bomb point, if that's even a thing. And based solely on Scott's past actions, it's unlikely that he had been honest with his employer about what he had done in the first place. That also doesn't justify or by any means explain Jennifer's murder. Everyone has fallen on hard times before. Every single person has suffered in one way or another, but getting fired, losing your income, and becoming homeless doesn't justify killing someone else.
All right, and this was in August or September?
It was the last Saturday of August 2018, ma'am.
17.
17, I'm sorry, 17.
So your employer paid you, however, for the time that you had worked there prior to your being thrown out onto the street.
Yes, I received, I believe, one paycheck.
Right. Was this the paycheck that you used to open up an account in Winter Park?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
What bank was that?
I'm sorry, I don't recall.
All right. Is this the account that provided you with the check that you used to make purchases at Walmart in September of 2017?
That would be correct.
All right. The account balance was what, $500?
I don't recall, but it sounds realistic.
Sounds about the approximate dollar value of the paycheck that you would have gotten and then deposited into this bank account.
Yes, Ms. Burdick.
All right. So with that money in the middle of September 14th or 15th, sound about right?
That sounds right.
All right. You went to Walmart and we saw a video of an individual making purchases at Walmart. Was that you?
That was me.
Right? And you used a check from that checking account and signed it right there at the register, correct?
That's correct.
What did you buy?
A very long list of material, all different kinds of odds and ends.
All right, well, a lot of it was cigarettes, right? Cigarettes are very expensive.
Yeah, they are.
You bought a pair of blue tennis shoes.
Yep. Yes, ma'am, I did.
You bought zip ties.
Yes, I did.
You bought duct tape.
That'd be correct.
You bought a knife.
I sure did.
Right. Anything else you remember?
I believe food.
Some food?
Yeah.
Okay.
Scott is answering the questions, and if you were to read everything he has said thus far, would sound mostly honest and polite, but based on how he projects himself, you can tell that he does not like or respect the prosecutor. He is snappy, quick, and sharp with all of his answers. He tends to punctuate his statements by raising his eyebrows and nodding curtly, and is extremely terse, as if everything that he is saying is obvious, and he is wasting his time here, which is an inappropriate attitude to have, when he is only there because he chose to take the stand in the first place.
So when you bought those, what were you planning to do? Why'd you need duct tape?
I bought that material because I had a plan in mind of how I was going to survive being thrown on the street again for what? The third, or was it the fourth time by the government, be it state or federal? And, you know, once you kick a dog enough times, they tend to bite back. And really, they just don't care anymore.
That's how he characterizes being released from prison, or being evicted after lying about his criminal history. He frames it as him being unjustly persecuted, even though most people would understand that that is simple cause and effect. His actions directly led to that conclusion, but because it's not a conclusion he's happy with, it has to be someone else's fault, and the person at fault is Julio Dominguez. Had he not been doing his job, contacting Scott's employers, checking in to make sure that Scott had been honest about his criminal history with those who could be negatively affected, he could have continued lying to his employer and landlord. This is an also insanely stupid thing to say on the stand, because it shows premeditation. He planned to kill in the weeks leading up to the murder. He didn't know who he was going to kill, but he spent the limited funds he had buying cigarettes and materials he would later use on Jennifer. So this was a deliberate, well-thought-through act, one that he orchestrated on his own without Julio.
So tell us about your plan.
My plan was to get some money and abscond.
Abscond from your probation?
Oh, I think anybody would after, I suffered to work my way up to the top of the mountain, and this maniac comes and cuts it out from underneath me. What am I going to do? Go get another job? Let him do it again? No, we're going to fight back.
But killing Jennifer isn't fighting back. It's not righting a wrong. It's killing a person just so you can feel like you have some power and control in your stupid, pathetic life because you can't take responsibility for any of the stupid things you've done. Everything is everyone else's fault, even though there are plenty of solutions to his problems that don't involve killing some random woman. Scott feels like everything bad in his life is something that was done to him, that he is just a universally unlucky person who was never allowed to have anything good without some cosmic force conspiring to take it away. But that's patently untrue. Though finding a job after being in prison is hard, there are programs made to help people like him find employment. Moreover, him having a hard time finding employment is simply the consequence of his own actions, because he was the one who planned and partook in federal crimes. His life and circumstances he found himself in were much harder than that of your average citizen, and it was entirely his own fault that they were like that. But apparently that is not something that Scott understands, and he rejects that sentiment entirely. It's always something else. It was his father's fault that he got arrested. It's the government's fault that they have laws against kidnapping and bank robbing. And it's Julio's fault that he killed Jennifer. The truth is that he had the power to improve his own life, but it was harder for him than the average person. He could have been honest with his employer, and maybe he would have gotten hired. He likely wouldn't have gotten a cheaper place to live, but he would have a job. But he lied, which meant that Julio eventually told him about Scott's crimes, and so he felt unsafe and fired him.
All right.
He lit a firecracker. He lit a bomb. He knew it too. And they laugh about it after. That's what corrections does. That's what the government does. That's all they've ever done to me. They've turned me into an animal.
So, Mr. Dominguez had you on probation out of Orlando, not Winter Park, right?
Yes, Miss Burdick.
Right. And when you first moved to Orlando in May of that year, you actually lived in the city at a shelter?
Yeah, I had no choice. Yes, ma'am.
And you were there for about 60 days?
That's about accurate.
Okay. What took you to Winter Park?
What took me to Winter Park? My employment.
All right.
That's where I was located. My employment brought me there.
So you were living in Winter Park?
Yes, I was.
Where?
On Forsyth Street.
With who?
By myself, but at the owner's 2-level garage on the bottom where he runs this paint business and painting company business. And the second floor is like a suite, refrigerators, stove, all that,
Is this Mr. Estromera?
That would be correct.
Okay. So Mr. Estromera, out of the goodness of his heart, allowed you to stay on a property that he either owned or controlled.
That's half right.
All right. So you said this is Forsyth Road in Winter Park,
Yes.
right? That's not really anywhere near Park Avenue, is it?
No, but his painting business brings me in all areas of Winter Park
All right.
and other towns.
So did you do any painting jobs on Park Avenue or near Park Avenue?
Not that I recall.
How about on Webster?
Not that I recall.
So there was no reason for you to be in that downtown Winter Park area, whether it's to live or to work, correct?
I'm free to walk about the streets like any other citizen.
Right, but aside from that, you had no reason to be there.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
All right. So rather than choosing this individual, Julio Dominguez, that you have a beef with, if you will, You decide that people who live in an area unconnected to you somehow need to be the target of your plan. Is that accurate?
No.
How then did you end up targeting Jennifer Fulford and Reed Berman?
The owner of the painting business, Mr. Estamera, had known Mr. Berman and had introduced me to a family, another family, and they had a beef with Mr. Berman. And their name, Reed Berman, and the location of that home came to light. I reported that to law enforcement.
Who is this? Who is this family?
I actually don't know the name of the family. I had been brought to their house by Mr. Estamera to paint.
All right, where is the house?
I believe it's in what they call Lake Forest or Forest Lake, something of that nature.
And what is that close to?
I don't know. I'm not familiar with the area, ma'am.
All right.
I'm being honest with everything I say to you.
So what you're saying is that this other person, who you don't know the name of now and don't know exactly where they lived, who is unconnected to Julio Dominguez, somehow led you to target Reed Berman.
That's fairly correct.
Scott is an idiot, which should have been obvious, but in case there was any question, let this one answer settle it. The prosecuting attorney went over his explanation in a way that drew deliberate attention to how nonsensical his story is. She emphasized how ridiculous it was using hyper-specific language, and he merely agreed, as if everything she said made sense. We've seen this in other cases, where someone like Robert Tellis will try and convince the jury of unbelievable stories over direct evidence. The prosecution will then belittle their tale, repeating it back to them in a manner that highlights its stupidity, and they are usually met with a rebuttal. That person will try and argue that actually their story is possible, and it isn't stupid. Then they get agitated. But not Scott. Scott either didn't pick up on the fact that she was calling attention to how ludicrous his story was to the jury, or he simply doesn't care. It's anyone's guess.
Okay? So because of you don't know Reed Berman, right?
Never met the man.
And you don't know or didn't know Jennifer Fulford.
No, I don't.
There was nothing that either one of them ever did to you that would have resulted in you taking some sort of revenge on them for, some moral cause.
I believe the term is collateral damage.
All right. You're saying that Jennifer Fulford was collateral damage as a result of your disliking Mr. Dominguez and how he treated you.
Well, I believe it's
Yes?
more, yes, but it's more accurate that he had a problem with me rather than I having a problem with him.
This statement is telling, and further validates our comment earlier about how Scott's perspective cannot be skewed. He believes that he knows 100% of how people around him think and perceive him, that he knows how Julio Dominguez felt about him better than Julio does. If he doesn't like something that is happening, he's not responsible for why it's happening, and it's probably an injustice being done to him. If someone tells him something he doesn't want to hear, they hate him, and they're trying to destroy his life. Him stating that he didn't have a problem with Julio is patently stupid and false, given that his entire defense, as she just stated, is that Julio made his life so hard that his killing Jennifer was righteous, that his probation officer made his life so outrageously hard that he is the one responsible for killing her, but he didn't actually dislike the guy. That's an unfair assumption to make about Mr. Nelson, the righteous gentleman.
And did you direct your concerns to Mr. Dominguez or his supervisor?
Well, once I got thrown on the street with no job and stuff, there was really no sense in complaining to anyone. What are they going to do?
So that's a no?
That would be a no.
All right, so instead of taking a normal course when you disagree with somebody, you decided on something completely different to make your point, if you will, right?
I'll overrule the objection.
Ma'am,
Is that a yes or no? Instead of taking a normal route to deal with somebody that you disagree with on a professional level, you took another route to make your point.
may I
no?
may I suggest yes and no answers in an area that we're venturing is really like putting a gag in my mouth, because there's a lot more to just a yes and a no. But I'll go with the game here. Yes.
All right.
Asking a yes or no question is a direct affront to Scott. She's being rude to him, taking away his freedom of speech, and gagging him because she wants an efficient answer to the question, one that he already answered at length. How he frames her asking this question just showcases how he views himself and everyone else's actions towards him. Because she asked the question in a way he doesn't like, she's bad and probably has a problem with him. She's trying to destroy his life by making him sound bad, even though she is just clarifying his points using his own words. Meanwhile, him actually murdering a woman in cold blood and stealing her money is justified. That doesn't make him a bad guy necessarily.
So you think this is all game?
Well, I think what you're doing is trying to manipulate the real facts.
Now, I'm trying to make a point that you.
Now I'm willing to admit to it.
Excuse me.
Hey, hold on. Madam Court Reporter cannot take down two people at once. So, Mr. Nelson, unless your attorney has an objection, you'd wait for my ruling, then you answer the question. Ms. Burdick, if you believe the witness is being non-responsive, you need to make that objection.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so you're saying that I'm trying to now manipulate something. The point is, you had a problem with somebody completely unrelated to Jennifer Fulford and Reed Berman, and you made a plan in September of 2017 to take your anger toward that person out on somebody like Jennifer Fulford.
I think that's accurate.
All right. Why not Mr. Dominguez?
Huh. Funny you should mention that. I happen to possess a 9mm handgun with 2 boxes of ammunition. They were in the house.
Relevance.
Okay.
Overrule the objection.
You can finish.
I happen to have that gun. I was going to shoot him, and I believe in God, because God was looking out for Mr. Dominguez that Saturday afternoon. Because me and him were in a part of Winter Park on Forsyth Street where on Saturday afternoon there was no one on Forsyth Street.
Is this Saturday afternoon before you killed Jennifer Fulford?
No, this was like a month prior.
A month before, okay. So you wanted to kill Mr. Dominguez, and you had the ability and the tools to do so, and you made a choice at that time not to.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's very lucky.
Even though Scott has stated he's being honest in his testimony, it's unlikely that he didn't kill Mr. Dominguez due to luck. Despite Scott never denying responsibility for the murder, despite pleading not guilty, he went to great lengths to hide that he was responsible. He moved Jennifer's car away from the body, hid the keys, and tried to hide his identity when withdrawing money from the ATMs. He killed Jennifer Fulford because he was a victim of opportunity and thought that she wouldn't be connected to him. However, if he killed his probation officer when they were scheduled to meet, it would have been easily traced back to him. He went through the efforts to plan the murder weeks in advance, buying the duct tape, zip ties, and knife. If he planned to kill Julio with a gun, he wouldn't have wasted his money.
All right. So back to the point, instead of carrying out that plan, you formed a new one.
Yes.
And for some reason, you turned your attentions, if you will, to the people of Winter Park.
Yeah.
Because you just didn't like the way they were treating you either.
I think that's a pretty fair assessment.
All right, so Mr. Dominguez, you don't like the way he's treating you. You think about killing him. You acquire the tools to do it and change your mind. So now, generally speaking,
Your Honor, can we approach?
Yes.
May I continue?
Yes.
All right. Do you remember the question?
No.
All right. Not sure I remember how I phrased it, but what we were discussing is you had formed a plan to kill Mr. Dominguez. You had acquired the tools to do that, and then you changed your mind. Yes?
No, I didn't. Never formed a plan to kill Mr. Dominguez. He walked into something and created a situation, and it made me give a certain thought into doing it, and the grace of God saved him.
So, if you're following Scott, which is fairly hard to do, given that he is objectively one of the smartest people we have ever covered, we say sarcastically, he didn't admit earlier to planning to murder Julio, even though he said that he was going to shoot him when they had a meeting earlier that month, meaning that he brought a handgun to a probation meeting, but somehow that doesn't qualify as him planning to kill him. It was just a happy accident that he brought the gun there because it fell out of a tree and into his pocket, and he didn't kill him because God intervened. That is pedantic nonsense.
All right. So instead of pursuing that, because that's who you're true, I mean, that's the only statement you made on direct. So that's the true subject of your ire.
Yes.
Right. So instead of pursuing that, you now decide, because I don't like how these people in Winter Park are treating me, somebody here is going to pay for the fact that I have this level of anger towards this other individual who ultimately caused me to be thrown into these streets.
Objection, compound question.
I'll sustain the objection of the form.
All right. Turn your attention to the people of Winter Park instead of pursuing the real subject, Mr. Dominguez.
Objection, relevant.
I'll overrule that objection.
No, ma'am.
Right. So in September, when you went to the Walmart and acquired the knife and the duct tape and the zip ties, remember the zip ties?
Yeah. Never leave home without them.
Thank you for that quote.
Levity.
You, at that point, formed a plan to use those items.
Right.
Maybe you didn't have a particular target in mind on that date, correct?
Correct.
But you knew at least 2 weeks before Jennifer Fulford's murder that somebody was going to pay for how you've been treated.
Objection, relevant.
Overruled.
That is very accurate.
All right. So to you, it didn't really matter who that was going to be? Were you looking for targets for 2 weeks?
Yes.
All right. And those targets were in Winter Park because these were the people who had nice homes that you couldn't live in, never would live in.
I have lived in those type of homes. You'll see that during the
future?
mitigation.
No, he hadn't. Scott has demonstrated that he thinks very highly of himself. He views himself as a morally good, upstanding person who is never really at fault for anything that he's done. If he ever did do anything bad, it was because he was forced to, or pushed to the edge by someone else, and therefore he cannot be blamed. His ego is such that when the prosecutor says an objectively true statement, that being that he never lived in a mansion like the ones in that area, he argues that he has, because how dare she try to imply that he was not able to provide for himself, or would be unable to afford a house as nice as the Bermans. It's a small aside, and should have been an insignificant point, but it illustrates beautifully how fragile Scott's ego is. Part of his defense is that, after he left federal prison, he was unable to provide for himself, and it made him homeless multiple times. But the direct statement that he's never owned a mansion is a bridge too far.
The situation in which you found yourself in 2017 led you to believe, I will never live in these homes, correct? I will never drive these nice cars.
No, Ms. Burdick.
Hold on. I'm going to overrule the relevance objection.
You're saying no, but do you remember the conversation that we played yesterday where you indicated to Brian Ferreira that these people in Winter Park, they don't give a crap about anybody who is not basically going to do something for them,
Now, that is 100% correct.
okay? But instead of staying near Forsyth in Winter Park or going back downtown Orlando, you turned your attention and focus to people living in the wealthy sections of Winter Park. Accurate?
No.
So how'd you end up there?
Luck of the draw.
Random,
Random.
all right? Didn't you spend days there in Winter Park prior to this event?
I had no choice.
All right. Well, you had a bus pass. You can get all over the county with the bus pass, right?
Actually, someone loaned that to me.
Well, you got it mid-September,
No, someone else did.
all right, and then gave it to you?
That'd be correct.
All right. But that's you getting on and off the bus that we saw,
I
right?
mean, I have to be somewhere, Miss Burdick.
I'm sorry?
I have to be somewhere.
Right?
What's wrong with being in the same town I'm employed?
All right. But you chose this particular section of Winter Park.
I think the more we have Q&A here, the further and further we're getting away from the reality of the matter. You're not getting the real truth. You're getting some sided version of what you want to
Refusing to answer the question.
delineate. I don't even know what question you're asking me, Miss Burdick.
Scott is unimpressed with this line of questioning, but, like when he was being interviewed by the police, he feels like he is in charge of the conversation, that he can tell her what questions are relevant and what is and is not important. Power is incredibly important to Scott, and because he has so little of it in his daily life, he tries to usurp it from others when he can. This entire trial is proof of that. Nelson knows he's going to prison. He has already admitted that he murdered Jennifer and doesn't deny any part of the crime. Because he didn't plead guilty and follow the conventional path, he is forcing the state to comply with his wants. He is forcing the judge, prosecution, jury, Julio Dominguez, and the victim's family to waste their time doing what he wants. He gets to take the stand and attempt to embarrass a probation officer, pin the blame on him for an innocent woman's murder, and forever associate him with his crime. He gets to force the very state that he was forced to move to waste taxpayer dollars in order to deal with his antics, and there is nothing they can do about it. In his mind, this is the ultimate power play, and he is enamored with it, because he knows the moment this ends, he will once again be reduced to nothing. However, the other issue with his line of thinking is that in the moment, he isn't all that powerful. Sure, he's forcing this trial to happen, but the prosecutor is still in charge of the line of questioning. The judge is still the highest authority in the room, and Scott, like a big old grown baby, isn't even in charge of when he can or cannot speak. His time of being reduced to a number is still exponentially drawing nearer and nearer, so it isn't a matter of if, but simply a matter of when.
I'm asking you at what point you turned your attention to this section of Winter Park to exact your revenge against Julio Dominguez. When did you decide that?
Decide what?
That you were going to exact your revenge against Julio Dominguez, against somebody in Winter Park.
I would say the night before.
No earlier than that?
Not a concrete decision, no.
All right, but you carried around with you the duct tape, correct?
It was available to me. I didn't carry it around. It wasn't like I had it,
Well, you told Detective Ferreira you would keep your stuff in the bushes,
I had to.
okay?
It had to be somewhere.
So your duct tape and your zip ties and your knife were either on you or with your possessions,
Yes.
okay? Easily accessible to you the moment you decided to take action.
Yes.
And that moment came, according to what you told the detective and what you're saying today, the night before Jennifer Fulford died.
A funny thing happened in the course of the confession interview there, okay? I asked quid pro quo.
No.
Okay? No, that's what I had.
Let me have you answer the question, and then on
Okay.
redirect. Your attorneys can ask you whatever they want.
I'll sustain the objection to instructions to the witness.
Are you going to answer?
Give me the question again. Lots going on here.
Actually, no. Can the court reporter read back the question?
You're learned at
Hold on,
this.
Mr. Nelson. Madam Court Reporter, can you read back?
I'm a simple man.
Mr. Nelson. Madam Court Reporter needs to read back the question.
Nelson doesn't actually view himself as a simple man, and he only said as much in order to best the prosecutor somehow. In his mind, calling himself simple is an insult to her, because she's getting run around in circles by him, even though she went to law school, and likely views herself as being better than him. He's trying to make her feel small, kind of like he's negging her, but it doesn't work.
Go ahead.
And that moment came, according to what you told the detective and what you're saying today, the night before Jennifer Crawford died.
Yes.
Okay. So it was then you began to plan at least a home invasion.
That'd be correct.
Okay. And if something happened during the course of the home invasion, that would be what you referred to as collateral damage, correct?
I'll overrule the objection.
If something happened during the course of this planned home invasion, you would consider that to be collateral damage.
Yes.
Okay. So the goal of the home invasion was to get as much money as possible.
That'd be correct.
And you chose, of course, the wealthy section of Winter Park because it stands to reason that those are the individuals that might have maybe a substantial amount of cash in their home.
As I was told, yes.
All right, so you took that risk, that you were going to enter a home hoping that you would hit the jackpot and end up with a lot of cash, right?
Yes.
Because you didn't really want jewelry or electronics, because you can't transport those things easily, right? You wanted cash. Yes?
Yes.
All right. Now, one of the things you told the detectives was that you saw Jennifer Fulford at this residence the night before. True?
True.
With the young boy?
True.
And the night before, you decided she was going to be your target. She was going to be the means by which you get yourself into Reed Berman's house.
That'd be correct.
That was 5 o'clock or so in the evening?
I don't know. I have no idea what time it was.
Daylight?
Daylight?
All right. I think you told the detectives you saw them in the driveway about 5 o'clock in the evening.
A lot of what I told the detectives was untrue. Because, if I may, a lot of what I told the detectives was untrue because we started off with a quid pro quo and they started weaseling out and playing their games and it started giving me a little enjoyment watching them squirm. Because some of the answers I gave them, the blood pizza, come on.
All right, so
That's a lot of inaccurate information I gave them because they weren't being forthcoming with my needs. They weren't trying to help me. They just wanted to squeeze me, so I just gave them a lot of BS back.
All right. All right. So the whole process in court, talking to detectives, it's all a sham.
No, I wouldn't say it's all a sham, but they didn't get the real deal because they weren't giving me the real deal.
All right. So you were...
I lawyered up when I met him. I had no intention.
You were seeking a single cell. This is what you wanted from these detectives, right? A single cell, bottom bunk.
I
And
think
they told you, you know, we don't work here. We can't make you any promises. You remember that exchange? You don't remember that exchange?
no, that never happened.
All right.
Believe me, Ferreira, he'd never say that. He'd
All
cut
right.
his tongue out before he'd ever say something like that to me. Oh, hell no, he sold me every dream to keep me talking.
Okay.
Hand language and all this, and oh yeah, no, he was very manipulative. That's why there's no video.
As were you.
No, I wrote a letter. I told him straight up, quid pro quo. You help me, I'll help you. That's it.
All right.
So that's untrue, and we know it's untrue because his lawyers never jumped on that argument. If there was any evidence that the police lied to him, that they offered him a deal then took it back, or did anything to entice a false confession, that would have been the first and only argument made by his lawyer. But Nelson expects the jury to believe that the cops made a super secret deal with him because there's no record of this happening anywhere else.
Well,
Oh no, I mean
let's
that's
get
how
back-
detectives are. They squeeze you. They then they ba-boom. You get nothing in the end.
Sure.
I mean, it's what you guys do. You're very
Does
good at
that
it.
mean that what you told him about killing Jennifer Fulford was untrue?
No, that is true.
All right. So let's go back to how that occurred.
Julio Dominguez.
We're past that. Let's get back to September 26th of 2017. You're on foot, correct?
Yeah.
You have your duct tape and zip ties and knife with you?
What does this have to do with Julio Dominguez? I mean, if you want to sit here and talk to me and grill me for the next 3 hours, I'm not doing this. I came up here for one reason. Julio Dominguez is the reason Jennifer Lynn Fulford died. That's it. That's all I have to say.
All right.
If you wanted anything more, talk to my lawyers.
So that's not how taking the stand works. But again, this shows how important control is to Scott. If you take the stand in your own defense, even if it's just to say that one thing, you immediately open yourself up for questioning from the prosecution, and there's nothing you can do about that. They can ask you anything, and though you can plead the fifth, you can't control what they ask you. His legal counsel told him that before taking the stand, because every defense attorney, regardless of how good they are, tells their client not to do this. But Scott felt that he knew better. He thinks that he can control the questions being asked, or at the very least, make the prosecutor look stupid when she asks her stupid little questions.
That's it.
Your Honor, would the court direct Mr. Nelson to answer the questions of all attorneys, not just his lawyers?
Well, need to,
My memory's getting real foggy right now. I'm
Nelson.
sorry. I must need my
Mr.
medication.
Nelson, don't speak when I'm speaking. Do you understand, sir? Do you understand, sir?
Yes.
Mr. Burdick, ask a question if there needs to be a pending question that he's refused to answer before I'll direct the witness.
The night before,
Yes.
September 26th of 2017, you're
Right.
on foot,
Yeah.
you have your knife with you,
No.
no duct tape,
No.
no zip ties?
That's not a good way to walk down the streets at night looking like Rambo.
All right.
No.
So you were just doing reconnaissance?
Yeah.
Okay. So did you go onto the Berman property to see if you could get in furtively?
No.
Right? Because your plan was you're going to force your way in.
No, the doorbell works better.
All right? So you're just going to go in the front door if you could make it in that way.
Anybody can. You ring the doorbell. She opened the door and let me in.
All right. But you didn't do it that night.
No.
But you chose Miss Fulford and that house finally. You made the final decision about it that night.
Yes.
Did you stay in the neighborhood?
Yes.
Where'd you stay?
Oh, I don't know. I can't even remember. It was so
Around
long
the
ago.
corner at this fountain?
I don't
whatever
recall.
you talked about?
I don't recall.
Right. You went up to people at the Winter Park Golf Club that morning?
Yes.
Were you hanging around the house, waiting until Jennifer Fulford appeared?
I was having health problems.
Were you hanging around the house, waiting until Jennifer Fulford appeared?
I don't recall.
Right. Well, at about 11:30 that morning, you're certainly within view of the front of Reed Berman's house, right?
I don't recall.
And you don't see the UPS or FedEx driver pull into the driveway with a package?
I don't recall.
Do you see Ms. Fulford answer the door, or do you?
Ma'am, I don't recall any of this. This is all getting foggy right now. I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember any of this. I've had head injuries.
So Scott has become willfully obtuse because he doesn't like that no one is paying attention to his stupid-ass reasoning for why Jennifer was murdered. He had hoped that his lawyer would ask more questions, or that the prosecution would just let him ramble on about his probation officer. But now that his dreams have been dashed and no one seems to care, he's pouting. The only way Scott's version of events was ever going to gain traction was if the jury and the public viewed him as a victim, if they saw him as a nice guy who maybe had made some mistakes in his past, but had been trying to better his life before being shut down at every possible turn. His lawyers would have to establish that he was a nonviolent offender prior to the murders, that he was a good guy despite his criminal history, and that it was only through Julio's bullying and mistreatment that he finally snapped. What the fuck does that? How does that make any sense? Hey jury, I'm Scott. I'm a good guy. Wow, Scott, you are a good guy. Oh no, Julio's mean. I've got this gun. Oh no. He would have to also show examples of Julio crossing the line when it came to punishing Scott and doing something more than what was required of his job. But that never happened. No ground was laid to make Scott seem sensible or likable, and instead, throughout his time on the stand, has come across as a pompous, self-obsessed, frankly shitty person. He's the kind of person who acts so entitled and smug that he just becomes repulsive, and even if he was being unfairly treated, most people would say it was deserved. It's not just his argument is stupid and holds no water, it's that he has sabotaged his own chances of winning by acting this way, and doesn't seem to recognize that fact.
Did you force your way into the house with a knife?
I would say, I suggest that you look at the confession. I mean, the one that you played yesterday, that, you know.
Did you force your way into the house?
I don't recall any of this stuff right now, ma'am.
Did you have a knife with you when you went into the house?
Ma'am, you better check the confession. I mean, what more do you want? I mean, did I make it easy enough? It wasn't great police work that got me here. I gave it all to you. Check the confession.
That isn't true. The police work that was done in this case was outstanding, as they were able to find and arrest Scott within 5 days of the abduction. They worked hard to build a solid case against Scott, even before he was brought in, and that should be applauded. Obviously, Scott is trying to make the prosecuting attorney's job a bit more difficult by pretending he doesn't remember things he's already admitted to, but it only serves to make him look like even more of a child who's going all rubber bones, which is one of the reasons why his attorney would have told him not to take the stand. It doesn't matter if you don't want to answer the state's questions anymore, or if you think that you can outsmart them by not answering. They aren't going to finish their line of questioning until they are done, meaning that even though he asked to leave the stand and decided he wasn't going to talk about anything but Julio, he can't go anywhere.
You got it.
You told Brian Ferreira and Sharon Wagner that you forced your way into the Berman house at knife point. Was that correct?
Ma'am, I just don't recall.
How long were you in the house?
I don't know. What is the security doors opening and closing? What do they say?
How long do you remember being in the house?
4 hours?
All right. So you had Jennifer Fulford zip-tied on the ground in the living room?
No,
Where?
I didn't zip tie her in the house.
Okay. How did you subdue her while you went upstairs?
She did what I said.
Okay. Did she go with you upstairs?
No,
So she just stayed downstairs while you went upstairs and looked in Reed Berman's bedroom
yeah,
and didn't move?
that's right.
Why didn't she move?
I know, ask her.
Why didn't she move?
I don't know, because people do.
Threaten her?
Yes.
Did you threaten the child?
No. How could I? I didn't know who that child was.
Right. Now, she told you someone was coming to the house, right?
I don't recall.
And then you made her call that person back and say, don't come?
I don't recall. I can't remember everything. I mean, I'm not a computer.
All right, you remember wearing a white shirt, a towel around your neck, and a pair of shorts with the blue shoes?
Can you tell me what you were wearing on the 27th of September?
There was a picture of it. Your Honor may approach
With,
189 in evidence.
go ahead.
That's you, right?
I can't make out the image. I don't know who it is.
See right here, there's a signature,
It looks like a bunch of scribbles.
S.
I don't know.
Do you remember signing this?
No.
During your statement?
Nope.
To the police,
No, I don't.
indicating that that was you?
I don't know.
So you don't know if that's you?
I can't see. I mean, I see some, it looks like some sweaty guy with glasses. I don't know if that's me or not. Doesn't even look like a signature.
May I approach with 190 in evidence?
Yes?
See what I'm pointing to here at the bottom of the image?
Yeah.
S, N,
Yep. That would,
signature?
I
Did you put your signature on this?
don't recall.
Is that you?
It sure looks like me, yeah.
Is that you?
I mean, it looks like me, apparently.
Did you take money out of Jennifer Fulford's bank account by forcing her to give you her PIN number?
I don't recall, ma'am.
Did you get $300 from Jennifer Fulford's bank account?
I'm sorry, I can't help you. I just don't remember all this. What does the confession say?
I may approach with 188 in evidence.
Go ahead.
See this signature near the image?
Yep.
Is that your signature?
Yeah, but I don't know how it got there.
Is that you?
It looks like me, yes.
Is that you?
I can't definitively say. It's not a very clear photo.
Were you at the Wells Fargo ATM on September 27th of 2017?
I don't recall, ma'am. You look stressed. You're welcome.
Pausing just to state that she is an attorney. For as stressed as she could be at this current moment, her job is to try cases and get justice for the people of Florida, and makes her living making sure that justice is served. She earns a fantastic living off of her own ability and work, and no matter how annoyed she is, makes money off of her own ability. And Scott does perceptively nothing. He lies and steals from his family. He tries and fails to rob a bank like a cartoon character, and his greatest joy was making the life of a prosecutor a bit harder than it had to be. That is his crowning douchebag achievement, which is so remarkably close to nothing that I can't believe he's so proud of it.
May I approach with 187?
Yes?
See down there at the bottom?
I see down there, yes.
Is that your signature?
I don't know how it got there.
Did you fix your signature to this photograph indicating that this was the bedroom that you had gone into on September 27th of 2017?
I don't remember doing that, ma'am.
Did you go in this bedroom?
I've never seen that bedroom before.
You didn't go into Reed Berman's bedroom and get the comforter off the bed so that you could put Jennifer Fulford in it so that you didn't have to drag her out of the house kicking and screaming?
Reed Berman slept in that bed a couple nights and he didn't even know the comforter was missing. Maybe he took it. They didn't report it.
Did you take the comforter off of the bed so that you could wrap Jennifer Fulford in it because you wanted to conceal her from the outside?
No,
You didn't wrap her in the comforter.
I didn't do that.
Who did it?
I don't know. I didn't do it. Maybe she did. Maybe she was cold.
Say that last line again.
I said maybe she was cold. I don't
On
know.
September 27th. How long have you lived in Florida?
I don't know. She ended up cold.
Go ahead.
I'm here at the corner, S. Nelson.
Now that looks like my signature. I don't know.
This car on September 27th of 2017.
I don't recall.
You go into Jennifer Fulford's car after placing her in the back and drive to the ATM
Really,
where you withdrew $300 at noon, 12:02.
I'm sorry. I just don't know, ma'am.
Were you in this car?
I don't know.
Did you drive this car from the Berman residence to the ATM?
I think I used that vehicle. I think I did. I showed up to see Julio Dominguez. I saw him that day.
And you had taken a bottle of beer from the Berman residence, right?
Terrible beer.
You took it though.
Yeah, I didn't reluctantly.
All right. And drank it and left it in that vehicle?
Yeah.
Okay. So then, after going to the ATM, is Jennifer's in the back, in the comforter, right, while you're at the ATM?
I think she was I think she was.
You put her there.
No, I don't recall doing that. No, I don't remember that part.
You said you carried her out of the house.
I did, when? Who did I say that to?
All right.
I didn't say that to you.
Did you say that to law enforcement? You wrapped her in the comforter so that all these people in Winter Park couldn't see what you were up to, so that you could get her into the car, so that you could get money, so that you could abscond from probation and the government oppression that you have suffered. Right? That's what this is all about.
No.
Were you in this car?
No.
Never.
Ma'am, that was like 2 years ago. I don't know. I've never even seen that vehicle. I don't even know whose car that is. It's sitting, I don't know who that is. I don't know what you're talking about.
Why'd you choose to drive all the way to Disney, or the Disney area, to take Mrs. Fulford out of the car?
I've never been to Disney.
Disney area, Fulton Street. You weren't on Fulton Street on September 27th of 2017?
I was there.
You drove that car we were just looking at from Winter Park all the way out. Did you go down I-4?
Ma'am, I'm not from Orlando. I don't even know what I-4 is.
You don't know what I-4 is?
I don't, ma'am. I'm
All
not
right.
from Orlando. I'm not from here. I don't have a vehicle.
Did you drive Mrs. Fulford's vehicle with her in the back all the way down to Disney to get rid of her? At that point, you knew you were going to kill her. Right.
Is that two questions or one question?
Answer the first one. We'll get to the second.
Did I drive? Yes, I did.
All the way down. Why there? What were you looking for?
I was looking for a place to dump her.
Scott thinks he's being a little smartass here, but everything he has said is stupid, and he believes that the public is going to be on his side somehow, that they're going to hear the facts of the case and determine that the murder wasn't his fault, but the fault of the state and the oppressive treatment he received after prison. But after faffing about for the last 15 minutes, saying he doesn't remember, then he does, then he doesn't again, he proudly proclaims that he traveled to the Disney area of Orlando with the direct intention to dump Jennifer. It's beyond callous.
Get rid of her.
Okay.
Next question.
Right. And so as you were driving, you absolutely knew that you weren't just going to leave her in a remote area, you were going to kill her.
No. Now that you're wrong about.
So when you say get rid of her, you mean just drop her off?
Well, yeah, that's what the zip ties were for.
Just drop her off, somehow restrained.
Yes.
If she died, so be it. If she died before somebody found her, so be it.
That's a matter of opinion.
Was that your thinking?
No, that sounds like it's your thinking.
Okay. So while you're in this vehicle driving, you have your kit with you, if you will, of duct tape and zip ties and the knife, because you said she wasn't duct taped in the car.
A lot of what I told those investigators, as the confession went on minute by minute, the more and more BS I would throw into it, because they were giving me BS and I was giving it right back to them. That's how that interview went. And that's the truth.
Right. The question is, you had this kit, if you will, of zip ties and duct tape and the knife, right?
Yes.
And as you were traveling, because it's do you remember how long it took?
I have
That
no
time of
idea.
day?
I don't know.
Probably an hour?
I don't know. Check the cell towers.
You were there.
I don't know.
You think it was an hour?
I don't know. I'm not good at keeping track of time.
All right. So you first go down an area closer to, you said you saw Disney signs, an area closer to them. Did you make a decision that this wouldn't be the right place to get rid of Mrs. Fulford?
What do you mean by get rid of?
Kill her?
No.
Drop her off?
I had no
Duct
intent.
tape and zip tie her?
Miss Burdick, I really think you have this all wrong. I never intended to kill that woman. It was not in my heart to do that. It wasn't what I had planned. I didn't want to kill that woman. She'd never done anything to me.
Right.
And now he didn't plan to kill Jennifer. He was just going to drop her off. Everything he said before about buying the zip ties, duct tape, and knife with the direct intention of killing someone because he'd been oppressed by the government was all fake. The first half of his testimony was all a very funny, elaborate joke. Not only was his justification for the murder stupid, but now he's admitting he lied on the stand. He's annihilated any credibility he might have had, which is nice to see because this guy is the worst.
So you drove her, though, all the way to Disney in the back of her vehicle for a purpose.
Yes.
It wasn't just for no reason, correct?
Yeah, you're right.
And you were searching for places to leave her.
Yes.
So then you find what you think, even though it's the middle of the day, is a relatively remote area, right?
Yes.
And you park the car on the dirt road?
Yes.
Pull into the field at all?
No.
Stayed on the dirt road?
Yes.
So you get out, and do you go to the back and open up the hatch?
Yes.
And she is in the back, wrapped in the comforter.
I don't recall, ma'am.
What do you say to her? Get out?
Ma'am, you're asking for specifics that I really, honestly, legitimately, truthfully, from my heart, I do not remember. I don't remember all those facts.
So you don't remember how Jennifer Fulford got out of the car?
We were picking a jury a few days ago. I can't remember some of that. And this is 2 years ago.
The question was, you don't remember how Jennifer Fulford got out of the car?
There's something wrong with my brain.
Did you have her duct taped at the ankles and zip tied behind her back while she was in the car?
I don't know. Check the medical examiner's report. They can't determine either.
Right. Well, you're the one who put the duct tape on the ankles, no question, right?
I don't know.
You're the one that put the zip ties on her wrists.
I don't know.
You're the one who dropped the zip tie at the tree line, right?
I don't know. You want the truth? I'll give you the truth. So help me God. I don't remember. I can't remember everything. There's something wrong with my brain.
He does remember, and you know he remembers because he tries to emphasize how truthful he is when he says he doesn't. There are some studies that have indicated when someone says, "Can I be honest?" or a similar phrase, they are usually being dishonest. Obviously, that's not true every time the phrase is uttered, and context matters. But in this context, we can accurately assess that he is lying, because he's a liar. But again, to be clear, we're not saying that every time someone says, "Can I be honest?" that the person is being dishonest. Even if there was a high percentage of people who do say that they're lying, plenty of people say that in their daily life, and trying to use that as direct evidence is a fool's errand.
So when you open up the back of this hatch to the Hyundai, she's making a lot of noise, pleading for her life. You have to remember that.
I heard it yesterday. Where did I hear it? Oh, I heard it on the recording of the confession. How can you give out sheets of paper and tell them not to, whatever, but anyway.
You have to remember her begging for her life.
No, I really don't.
All right. So you remembered that in November of 2017 and told that to the detectives, but you can't remember it now.
It's been 2 years.
Okay.
Lots happened in 2 years. I've been abused a lot. We all get abused, don't we?
All right. And you have to remember that Jennifer was crying.
No, I don't. I don't remember that. No, she wasn't.
Begging you not to kill her.
I don't remember.
That she continued to get louder and louder, so you decided to duct tape her whole head. Not just her mouth, not just her eyes, her whole head.
Sustain the objection to the form.
Ma'am, Miss Burdick,
I sustain the objection, Mr. Newman.
Are you saying you don't remember?
I don't remember, ma'am.
All right. Did you take the comforter out of the car at all while you're at the scene?
No.
You left it in the back?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you carry Jennifer Fulford from the back of the car through that patch of trees and vines to the open field? Or did you have her walk under her own power?
I think what was going on, ma'am, was that at that point, I was not in the right state of mind. And when I get to that point, like when corrections abuses you or does things to you, it gets me in that state of mind where, that you just can't see things clearly and you just don't understand things. And you do things that you really don't want to do or understand why you do them. And that's where 25 years in custody has brought me.
So
I've been
the
through horrible experiences.
pending question is, did Jennifer Fulford get out of that car under her own power, meaning did she walk? Or did you carry her?
I'm sorry, I can't give you.
All right, because you recall being ripped up by the briars that were in that patch of woods, right?
I think she was fighting or something. And we ended up getting, yeah.
You remember being ripped up yourself
Yeah.
by the
I do.
briars? That's what, we saw those pictures taken of you.
Yeah, I saw
on
them
October
yesterday.
1st.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
remember those injuries?
Yes.
All right, to the exposed parts of your skin, because you had shorts on.
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
Yeah.
And so you walk through there, you get scraped up. Did she walk or did you carry her?
She walked, ma'am.
All right, so her ankles were not duct taped until you got her into the open field.
I'm sorry, I can't remember everything. I'm being as helpful as I can for you, but I don't remember, ma'am.
All right. Was her head duct taped, or her eyes or her mouth duct taped as you got her into the open field? Meaning, could she see where she was?
I don't know.
Did she start yelling?
I don't remember. I don't remember.
All right. So while you're out there, you decide she's going to testify against you.
Well,
If
that,
she gets out of here, she's going to testify against me, right? And
that-
yeah.
that's something that was said during the interview. That was towards the very end, and I was doing it because I was getting some really good visuals from Detective Wagner. She was, and I started, they were jerking me, so I just gave it back to him. So a lot of that was just, just to amuse myself and watch her.
Unresponsive.
With how Scott talks about his time in prison, he obviously views it as a pretty horrible place, and unfortunately, many career nonviolent offenders who are released from prison will continue to commit crimes outside, but choose to kill any witnesses to try and avoid prison. A living witness means that you can be identified, but a dead body can't turn you in. There are plenty of examples of this happening, but horrifically, this is seen the most with sexual assaults.
Overrule the objection.
You were trying to make Detective Wagner squirm? Was that your goal?
Pretty much, yeah.
All right.
I mean, we
Aside from whatever tactics you were using on Detective Wagner, could you tell us if Jennifer Fulford had duct tape over her eyes as you walked her out to the field?
she did not.
So she could see where she was.
That's correct.
And she started screaming.
I can't remember.
Would you agree that she was terrified?
I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, ma'am, she has I don't know how many stab wounds on her body and stuff. And I'm going to look you in the eye and I'm going to tell you something. I don't remember doing all that.
All right. The pending question was, did she appear to you to be terrified?
It's been asked and answered.
I'll overrule the objection.
I mean, I'm sure she wasn't happy.
Okay.
I mean, how?
Screaming?
No.
Begging you not to kill her?
No.
You've had a knife this whole time, right? That knife we saw? That green and black knife?
How are you supposed to carry someone and carry a knife at the same time? Or how are you supposed to, I mean.
Was it in your pocket?
I think I left it in the vehicle. And then I had to go back and get it, I guess.
All right, so she's out in the field, and you have her duct taped and zip tied, face down, and then you need to eliminate her as a witness.
Ma'am, that was something I said to Miss Wagner to get her ire. At that point, that was deep into the confession pseudo interview.
That is something he said, but of course, according to him, if he did say it, it was just a joke or something he was saying to jerk around one of the detectives.
I'm not asking.
Yeah.
I'm asking
sorry.
you
Yes, ma'am.
a direct question about, you were out in the field. Tell us, did you have her face down, bound, while you went and got your knife?
Your Honor, can we approach?
Yes?
May I have the question before the objection read back, Your Honor?
Madam Court Reporter, if you'd please read back the pending question.
When you were out in the field, and tell us, did you have her face down, bound while you went and got your knife?
I do not recall, ma'am. I don't remember. I was in a different world at that point.
Now, she stabbed on her back and on her chest, on the front of her chest.
What I've seen from the medical examiner, yes.
So which did you do first?
Ma'am, I don't remember.
At some point, did you have to turn her over one way or another to complete what you had brought her there for?
Ma'am, I never brought her anywhere to kill her. That's something you're trying to
Why'd you put her in the field?
Should I have dropped her off in front of OPD?
Why'd you put her in the field?
Asked and answered.
He,
Overruled.
To leave her there. Not to kill her, to leave her there.
to leave her there. Why did you bind her hands behind her back?
I would imagine so that she couldn't leave.
Why did you bind her feet with duct tape?
I imagine so she wouldn't walk away.
And why did you wrap her entire head in the duct tape?
Probably so she couldn't scream.
Okay. Why did you wrap it so tightly that she couldn't breathe?
I didn't do it that tightly.
So
It
you,
wasn't my intent.
but your intent clearly was
To subdue.
leave a bound woman in the middle of nowhere and then go back to Mr. Berman's house and maybe hold him hostage to see if you can get some money out of him.
Oh, I would have.
Well, that was part of your plan, right?
Yes, but not to hurt that woman. And I didn't leave her in the middle of nowhere. There was a house within walking distance. It was a couple 100 feet. There was a
Why
home.
don't you just leave her at the house?
Oh, that would have been kind of foolish, wouldn't it? Why didn't I just give her a cell phone?
Right. If you were just planning to leave her somewhere, you were planning to get rid of her,
No,
correct?
I used that word. I used that.
I'm going to sustain the objection to ask and answer. That particular.
All right, you said you used those words,
Yeah, to get rid of. Yeah, but not to kill.
so your interpretation is just,
Your interpretation of rid and kill is the same thing. Mine's different.
I'm asking you, your interpretation of getting rid of her is simply to leave her there in the state we've described.
Yes.
So after this happened, you took her car and drove to the Publix, correct?
Yeah, I've seen the photos of me going in and out.
You changed clothes in the car, right?
I have no idea. Just try for a moment. Try to put yourself in my situation at that point. I mean, would you remember any of this? And you haven't had hand injuries. You don't have psych meds. You don't have all these problems. You wouldn't have remembered. How am I?
Your answer is you don't remember if you changed your clothes in the car?
Yeah, I don't remember.
All right. Do you have blood on you?
I don't know. No, I don't know.
You don't remember Jennifer Fulford's blood on you?
No.
But you went into the Publix for the purpose of cleaning up, right?
I would say yes. Yeah, definitely.
Put a new shirt on,
Right.
put the hat on, the UCF hat that you bought at the Walmart,
Sure.
put that on,
Yeah, okay.
and went across the street, put the keys in that bush, and.
That you would never have found without me.
Jumped, right, and jumped on the bus. Took the bus down to, right down here, right? The Link Central Station, and headed back to Winter Park to see if you can get some more money?
Yeah.
All right, because you still had the ATM card, Jennifer Fulford's ATM card, right? You didn't leave that in the car. You didn't leave that in the field. You kept the ATM card. Remember that?
Well, I mean, no, I didn't bring them there. I left those in the area of the bank.
All right.
They never came down with me.
So you went and retrieved them and went back to that ATM to see if you'd get more money.
Yes, ma'am.
So you remember that?
Yeah.
You remember going to the train station, buying the ticket,
In and out, like bits and pieces.
and then you remember going to the 7-Eleven, buying this pizza,
Yeah, I remember that.
all right? And then you talked, of course, to the detectives about how much you enjoyed it, because somebody
Well-
had to die for you to get that.
And yeah, Detective Wagner is losing it at this point, so that's why I, because I mean they're jerking me around, they're playing games with me, and I'm just giving it right back, and that's what that interview was about.
Mm-hmm.
We were, in old Ferrari, he's giving the hand signals, oh, I got you, boy, I got you. We'll take care of them conditions for you, and all that. Of course, he'll never admit to that, Oh, no.
All right. So what you told them, though, about going and getting that pizza and having the thought that somebody had to die for me to get this pizza.
Well, in all reality, that is true. I mean, it is true.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's sad, but it's true.
So once you get to the bus station and then, the train station and go to the 7-Eleven, you lose the UCF hat. Where'd you put it?
Oh, ma'am.
At that point, did you make a decision to appear on as many cameras as you could?
To make a point, I wouldn't think so.
Well, you took the hat off and you're standing in front of the cameras at the 7-Eleven, at the train station. Once you get to the train station in Jacksonville, you're just standing there. Is that part of this taunting of law enforcement that you've talked about?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, is it against the law to stand somebody where?
I'm asking you a question. Did you make a conscious decision to stand in front of the cameras to taunt law enforcement? Basically, see if you can catch me.
No, I think that's something you're drumming up.
All right. Now, once you got to Jacksonville, and then ultimately were located by the authorities up there.
It would take a scientist to figure out where I was. I mean, I used my real ID to take a train out of Winter Park to Jacksonville. Notice I didn't cross the line. I stayed within I allowed them to catch me. I allowed
You wanted them to,
Oh, yeah.
which is why you put your face on all those cameras.
No, no,
Because
no, that's not
this
true.
entire,
Not allowing the witness to.
I'll sustain the objection, Ms. Burdick, unless you have a non-responsive objection, you need to let the witness finish.
you said no, right?
I never walked around putting my face in cameras that this whole world is full of nowadays. There's cameras everywhere. So I don't care where you stand anywhere, you're going to be on a camera somewhere. No, that it wasn't my intention. I ended up in Jacksonville because I just jumped on a train. I said, what was the next train out of? He said, we got one to Jacksonville, and that's where I went. I didn't go off into Georgia or any other part of the country when I had money to do that. So obviously I didn't abscond. I know about jurisdiction. I know about police investigation. I know a lot. So it's where I ended up. But I also know that how a fugitive task force works. a CAT team, criminal apprehension team. I know how these things work. 25 years in federal custody, you learn a few things, especially sitting in the law libraries 24 hours a day.
All right, so once you got there, you pretty much, aside from your trip to the ATM to try to get more money,
Yes, ma'am.
you stayed close to the train station and waited for their arrival?
Yeah, I did. It wasn't my intent to go around the countryside killing people. I'm out of money, I'm out of gas, that's it. I was hungry. I was starving to death on the streets of Winter Park, one of the richest towns in Florida, hungry. Oh, she'd give the shirt off her back. How many times have I heard that in my life? Oh, I'll do that. That's something people like to get high on. They love doing that. Oh, I'd give the shirt off my back. I'd do this, that, and the other. No, you won't. You'll give just enough so it doesn't hurt. No, people don't give a damn about nobody in this world. They don't care. They don't care. If I had knocked on anybody's door and said, hi, I need some food and a place to live, 911, hey, I need some water. Get out of here, you bum, get a job.
Well, because when you knock on someone's door in Winter Park, you did so with the intent to commit a home invasion.
Julio Dominguez left me no choice. I mean, 20,
Right, that-
20 I mean.
That was your intent, and
No,
you
the
carried it
the
out.
federal government turned me into an animal, and I can prove it. You lock a person in a tent.
Non-responsive.
They turned me into an animal, is what they did. They terrorize you. They brutalize you. It's a sick, sadistic game. The penal system in America is a spectacular failure. Nothing works. But everyone that drives by a prison, they glance at it real quick and keep driving. They may shudder. Oh, that's it. Oh, God, and thank God I'm not there. And keep on a rolling. Nobody cares. Nobody cares what goes on in there. They'll spend $30,000 a year to keep you in jail, and they won't give you a nickel to keep you out. They turned me into an animal. I've been beaten. I've been chained to beds for days at a rip. I've been locked in cells that are so stifling hot. I have flashbacks to this very day. I've had cockroaches running over my body. I've been beaten. I've been raped. I've been everything in prison.
And yet you did
And now I'm
something-
out in the
and
free
yet-
world,
okay,
and this
hold on.
guy
Hold on.
rips everything out.
Yet you did something
What?
that will potentially put you in prison for the rest of your life or on death row.
I couldn't help it.
Everything he is saying about the prison system and his time there can be true. However, he was not turned into a criminal while in prison. His actions led to that arrest. He kidnapped and robbed his father. He tried to rob a bank, and then he killed a person. And he was in his right mind when he did all of that. He knew right from wrong. He knew that if he were caught for his crimes, he'd go to prison, and he still followed through with his actions. That is on him. Prison isn't a place that anyone would want to go. It's not a vacation. It's not a rehabilitation center. It's a confined space where criminals are placed so they don't endanger the public. Prisons aren't anywhere near perfect, and there are absolutely ways they can be improved. But Scott is looking for a scapegoat to his shitty behavior because he doesn't want to be responsible for himself.
I don't.
You intentionally did something to get yourself back into the prison system,
I'll overrule the objection.
correct?
Ma'am?
You had not just money as a goal, but to get back into the prison system, right?
No, that wasn't my intent.
Because you made this YouTube video that you talk about that you made, that was an effort by you to raise money for a second medical procedure,
Yeah.
all right?
Yes, ma'am.
When that failed, you knew that your only hope for getting this second medical procedure was for either the federal government to pay for it while you're in custody, or for the people of Florida to pay for it, right?
I don't have $30,000 in my pocket, but I never intended to go back to prison. It was never my intention. I didn't do anything to want to go back. That was not it. I knew the federal government, the U.S. Federal Bureau of Prisons, was not going to pay for the second part of the operation that I needed, that they flubbed and made sure I didn't get to begin with.
So instead, you want to go into the Florida state prison system.
No.
So that you could get the medical care.
No,
That you just-
I had medical
Hold
care.
on, hold on, sir. I couldn't hear the, all over.
I had medical care coming.
So you committed the worst possible crime in order to either get to death row, so you could have a single cell, or back into prison so that you could get free medical care. Yes?
No, absolutely not. You're wrong. You're drumming something up.
So it was all about the money then? All about the money.
Isn't everything?
Is that a yes?
I had to eat. I'm a human being.
Is that a yes?
You're damn right it's yes.
You remember writing a letter to the state attorney, Aramis Ayala, back on January 3rd of 2018?
Ma'am, I don't remember that. I've written so many letters in my life.
You remember telling her that you knew exactly what you were doing when you committed first-degree murder?
I think I've said that.
All right?
I mean, I don't know about the levels and degrees of homicide. I mean,
You said that you spent many years in the library in prison. So you
I'm not an
know
attorney.
that first-degree premeditated murder is the highest level offense, criminal offense, in the state of Florida.
No, I don't know much about state law. But anyway.
Nevertheless, you, whether you've said it in a letter before, whether you told the police, you're telling this jury that you knew 100% what you were doing when you committed intentional, planned, premeditated murder. Yes or no?
No.
Didn't know. No other questions, Ron?
So this is where the testimony ends. His testimony was riddled with resentment, but offered no true remorse, and once the trial came to a close, he was immediately found guilty. During the penalty phase, he requested the death penalty for himself, declaring he was a homicidal maniac and unfit to re-enter society. However, because the prosecution had so brilliantly laid out how he wanted to be put on death row simply because he wanted a single occupant cell, the jury decided against his wishes and sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Scott Nelson is one of the worst people we have ever covered, because he truly cannot take ownership of any of his actions. He blamed everyone except for himself, except when he confessed to murder, and thankfully, he'll never be released from prison. If you've made it to this portion of the video, thank you for watching. Your support, as always, is greatly appreciated. And should you want to see more of our content, you can get more from us in your algorithm by liking, commenting, and subscribing. If you want to support the channel and get early access to videos, including one extra video a month, a link will be left to our Patreon. And as always, remember, stay safe.